What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Nick, and I have an album review for you. This one, once again, is brought to us courtesy of Screaming Toilet. Again, it's a cool site full of reviews, podcasts, all sorts of pop culture related stuff, even a store. Definitely check it out. So today I'm reviewing the new album from Profantor, Fallen. Now, it's important to note that this is a reissue. This came out on FDA Records this year, but actually came out on m.a.t. Records in 2018 out of Mexico. This band formed in 1999, and this is their fifth full-length. This band also features former members of Disgorge, m.a.t, and Strikemaster, so definitely some veterans of metal there. So this album opens up right away with the song Hatred, and right away the production is kind of an issue. It's very, very muddy. It sounds a lot like a demo, really. It doesn't sound as though it went through any sort of mastering at all. But what you're greeted to is kind of interesting. It's essentially this wall of dissonance and kind of almost like punkish grindcore riffs. Like there's some stuff in there that reminded me of Napalm Death, which I wasn't expecting to hear out of this because this was advertised as black and thrash. And it's definitely that, but it's almost black and crossover thrash. There's almost sort of a punk energy to this song that's really interesting. Now, unfortunately, the guitars in here are very muddy, and you're kind of losing a bit of the riffs in there, and it's really a shame because there are some really good riffs on this album, but it's kind of difficult to make out. The next track, Corpse Harvest, really actually shows up a lot more songwriting clear, whereas Hatred was just kind of a big, abrasive opener, very fast, very in-your-face. This one actually takes some time to build up the song a bit, and I have to say some of the riffs in here really remind me a lot of Korn, kind of odd and angular, but surprisingly melodic. The song is definitely more dynamic, and there's a lot more going on there. There's actually a pretty decent solo on it. And again, it's kind of lost in the muddy production, but you can tell these guys have some songwriting talent, and it really shows on this one. A lot of the faster parts in the song really reminded me a lot of early Sepultura, especially around Schizophrenia. And that sort of death thrash sound that both Sepultura and a band like Possessed kind of had, because it is absolutely flying. This album really does not take a lot of breaks. It is constantly just thrashing. Now, throughout this album, there are almost kind of two kinds of tracks here. There are the longer, more well-constructed ones, at least in my opinion, and then you have the shorter, more blackened crossover thrash-sounding ones, I think. Now, the longer tracks is where I really think they show off a lot more songwriting flair. Voice of Disorder was one that really stood out to me. It opens up with a very grim, cold, dissonant melody. When the drums come in, the ride hits really remind me a lot of Criminally Insane by Slayer, which, if you remind me of Slayer, you're doing a pretty good job there. Breaks out into really cool triplet chugs, which this album is loaded with some insanely fast picking. I really wish the production was a little bit better on the guitars because you could really hear the work they're putting in a lot more clear, but geez, they're just flying on this. It's really cool. But that also has this cool tremolo melody, so it adds heft and atmosphere as well, and it actually feels kind of haunting. Now there's a section of the song that I really like that kind of blends punk chords and then like blackened tremolo riffs, like they kind of break back and forth to them, and it's just this really interesting dynamic I like that's like black metal meets like Nuclear Assault or something like that, and I just really dug this song. This was one of the best ones on here. Night Fever was another standout, though I think the intro is a little odd. It kind of reminds me of like a series of quick cutaways in a film where it's like one of those weird transitions in a Guy Ritchie flick. None of the sounds seem to make sense. It doesn't sound like it's from one scene exactly. It's just weird sounding. I don't know what they were going for in terms of setting the mood for the song, but it's just odd. But the song itself really rips, and this is, again, where I noticed the longer songs, they actually put more time into creating dynamic, more memorable riffs. The song had like a really early Creator feel, but with the fast pace of the double bass drums, it really reminded me of Pete Sandoval and all his drum work on Altars of Madness. Now this one actually has a particularly nasty breakdown, and how they lead into it is really cool. Good isolated chug, then the next guitar comes in, then boom, we get into this almost blackened power trip sort of breakdown. Really cool section, has some dissonant melodies that come in, and then boom into a solo, and then it goes back to the main verse part. Really well constructed song, I really dug this. Now it goes into one of their shorter tracks after that, Pest, which is not too dissimilar from the other shorter tracks on here. They're more punkish. This one actually had some almost crust punk feel to it. So it kind of reminded me of a band like Disrupt a bit. And while I like they show off their variety in terms of their influences and what they like to play, these shorter songs don't play to their strengths, or what I think are their strengths in terms of their more intricate songwriting. It's good, but they kind of pale in comparison to the longer tracks. Now, the last track, Fallen, was definitely one I wanted to get to because it's one of my favorites, and it also irks me. It starts off with a very long, creepy intro, and granted, the creepy intro works with the song. It's just long. It's over a minute and a half. Now, granted, this is a 10-minute and 38-second song. It still feels like it was drawn out too much. And when we get to the song itself, it's definitely more of a mid-tempo song. It's more groovy. It's more epic sounding. The riff on the song is beyond catchy. Really just had its hooks in me. It kind of reminded me of like Behemoth a little bit. You know, that big epic but evil quality to it. There's a really nice lead in it, and it keeps building, and you feel like it's building to a point, and then it sort of cuts off and to what you think is going to be like a little epic segue or whatever, where keyboards come in, there's a spoken word, and that's around the 6-minute mark, 6.5-minute mark, and then that's the rest of the song. It kind of draws out this long epic outro for 4.5 minutes. It really just kind of kills the song. And like when you add up the intro time, almost half of the song is this pageantry, really. This big intro for atmosphere and whatnot, and it really wasn't needed because this song was rolling. Like I just feel like maybe they didn't know how to keep rolling along with it or something like that, or it was an unfinished song and they had to pad it out for length. But this potentially could have been the best song on the album, at least in my opinion. But the way it ended was just kind of lackluster. Now, there are other strong tracks on that before that I really liked, but this was the big epic closer I was looking for, and it really only half delivered there. So overall, I'm going to give this album 3 stars. I particularly like the longer songs on here, the ones where they really just showed off some cool, strong structure and really kind of just got away from the punkier, thrashier stuff. Not that that was bad, I just think what they were doing in those longer songs was more interesting. Too many long intros that are just kind of weird, and that long outro on the last track really just kind of took me out of it. You know, the recording quality, definitely not great, but I think, honestly, I would definitely check out more by this band, and now that they're on FDA, maybe they'll get a chance at a better studio. But either way, definitely check them out. It was a fun listen for the most part. So, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do shit like this all the time. Catch you later.